Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Syafiqah Umairah binti Zazali, number ID SMC24070249. And today, I am going to present the first question of the assignment, which is define inflation and describe its main type of inflation. Support your explanation with relevant example from cited articles and current economic issue. So let's answer the first part of the question, which is the definition of inflation. The definition of inflation is sustained increase in general price of goods and services in an economy over a period of time, which reduce the purchasing power of money. So let's answer the second part of the question, which is the type of inflation. So there are three types of inflation, which is demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and also imported inflation. So let's understand the first type of inflation, which is demand pull inflation. So demand pull inflation occurs when aggregate demand exceeds supply in the economy, causing prices to rise. In the cited article, the higher minimum wage as per budget 2025 will support consumption growth, and greater disposable income can boost demand for goods and services, potentially creating demand pull inflation if supply cannot keep up. For a current situation example, after COVID-19, many countries experience demand pull inflation as consumers spend more on travel and dining, suppressing what businesses could immediately produce. Let's move on to the next type of inflation, which is cost push inflation. So, cost push inflation occurs when cost of production rises, leading producers to pass higher costs to the consumers. For example, in the cited article, it mentioned that targeted RON 95 fuel subsidy removal is mentioned as cause of inflation. Fuel is a key of production and transportation, and if the fuel prices rises, it will raise the overall cost of production and manufacturing all across industries. For the example of current issue for this type of inflation, Russia-Ukraine war disrupted global energy supplies, rising crude oil and gas prices. Many countries, including Malaysia, experienced higher fuel and electricity prices in 2022 until 2023. Due to this, driving up production and logistic costs. For the last type of inflation, we have imported inflation. So, imported inflation occurs when prices of imported goods and raw material rise, often due to exchange rate fluctuation or global commodity price increase. From the cited article, we can see an example of Datuk Sri Abdul Rashid highlighted that global commodity prices and supply disruption pose an upside risk to Malaysia's inflation outlook. This implies that if global oil and food prices spike due to international tension or shipping disruptions, Malaysia will import that inflation. For current issues example, we have Malaysia imports significant portion of its foods and energy. So, for instance, higher global wheat prices because of Ukraine-Russia conflict increase the cost of bread and flour-based products locally.
For question number 2, to measure inflation, the government collect price data to calculate the Consumer Price Index (CPI) using a structured and standardized method. In Malaysia, this process is handled by Department of Statistics Malaysia (DOSM). Here, how the government gets the price data for CPI. CPI measures the average change in the price paid by consumer over time, often used to track inflation. The CPI formula used here, CPI 2025 equal to CPI 2024 times 1 inflation rate. inflation rate divided by 100. So first is if inflation 2.0%, so you can see CPI 2024 same 102.0, inflation rate is 2.0. So the calculation is 120 times 1 plus 2.0 divide 100. So the answer is 122.4. So the next one is the inflation 3.5%. CPI 2024 is 120.0. Inflation rate is 3.5%. So the calculation is 120.0 times 1 plus 3.5 times 100 equal to 120.0 times 1.035 equal to 124.2.
So now I will explain question number 3, which is discuss with the relevant example how inflation impact on individuals, society's welfare and standard of living in Malaysia. First, impact on individuals. When price rise, the cost of living increase. For example, individuals will have to spend more on daily necessities such as food, transportation and healthcare. If wages do not increase in line with inflation, people may struggle to maintain their current standard of living. Example, in Q3 2024, the price of diesel increased by 20.1%, significantly raising transportation and logistics costs. For an individual who commutes or depends on delivery service, this means higher monthly expenses. Next, impact on society welfare. Inflation can widen income inequality. High income groups may cope better, but low and middle income households may face difficulty affording basic needs, reducing their welfare. It may also lead to reduced saving and higher borrowing costs affecting financial security. Example, despite higher vehicle insurance costs and diesel prices, core inflation was stable due to effective government mitigation measures. However, without such controls, lower income households would bear the heaviest burden. Number 3, the last but not least, impact on standard of living in Malaysia. A high inflation rate without a matching wages increase means households have less disposable income. This could lead to lower consumption of goods and services, reduced quality of life, and more stress. Over time, it might even lead to undernourishment or reduced access to education and healthcare. Example, although food inflation was moderate at 1.6%, any significant future price rise may cause families to reduce spending on healthier food options or other essentials, thereby affecting their overall well-being. That's all from me. Thank you.
Now we go to the last question. With supporting data, explain the policy measure the government agency or non-government organization (NGO) that could be effective in controlling rising inflation in Malaysia based on the article. Based on the article, the Malaysia government and Bank Negara Malaysia (BNN) have introduced several key policy measures under Budget 2025 to help manage inflation effectively. This includes targeted Run 95 fuel subsidy is implemented by Malaysia government. Fuel subsidy will be provided specifically to those who need them rather than applying to everyone. This helps reduce government spending while still protecting vulnerable groups. from fuel prices increase. For example, despite a 20.1% increase in diesel prices, core inflation remained stable at 1.9% in Q3 2024, showing that the targeted approach helped limit over price increase. In addition, Malaysia government can implement minimum wages policy by create a new minimum wages if introduced to support household income and boost consumer spending. This purpose to strengthen economic growth without significantly increasing inflation. For instance, PNM note that previous minimum wages increase had only a small impact of inflation. Moreover, Malaysia government initiate expansion of sales and service tax SST. This raises government revenue to support public spending while being balanced with other policy to avoid major inflationary effect.